Now we're moving on to a session on classroom management. Here are the learning targets for this session. Educators will be able to answer the following questions. What is classroom management? Why is it beneficial? Why do scholars misbehave? How do we encourage positive school behavior? i.e., how do we redirect misbehavior? How do we develop and maintain effective classroom management using PBIS and LifeSchool? Think it through. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we punish. John Herner. I want you to pair up and find a partner to share how this resonates with you. You'll have 1 minute to discuss. Who would like to share what you discussed with your partner? Let's do our do now. We need to relate the real world to our classrooms. How can we make our classrooms a place scholars look forward to coming back to where they feel safe and know what to expect? So I want you to think about your favorite store you like to shop in. What makes it a place you like to go to? I want you to turn and talk to a person next to you, and you'll each have 1.5 minutes for a total of 3 minutes to discuss this. Let me have a pair of people share what you discussed. And as you share, tell us, how does this relate the real world to our classrooms? Let's begin with the what. What does effective classroom management look, feel, and sound like? So, what does classroom management look, feel, and sound like? We are going to do an activity that we've done earlier in the day called stand up, hand up, pair up. You will stand up and walk around the room with your hand up. When I say stop, you will pair up with the person closest to you. Discuss the question once you have paired up. You have 3 minutes, so about 1.5 minutes per person. Who wants to share what you and your partner discussed about what effective classroom management looks like, feels like, and sounds like? So, what is classroom management? Let me have someone read the definition for us. Classroom management is defined as the procedures that a teacher uses to maintain an environment in which instruction and learning can occur. Classroom management creates the foundation for an effective and successful classroom. It is invisible when performed at its best, and it is apparent when it is missing from classrooms. While behavior and classroom management are two distinct items, you need both to run a successful classroom. They support each other in building a learning community filled with scholars who make positive behavior choices. So what is the difference between behavior versus classroom management? Behavior focuses on individual scholars and instills positive behavior choices in the scholar so they can make good decisions for a lifetime. Classroom, on the other hand, focuses on the whole group and creates a learning environment. As you can see by this diagram, our behavior and classroom management approach is driven by positive discipline and consistency. Without consistency and a positive behavior approach, educators will struggle to succeed in academic success. You will start by setting clear and meaningful expectations for your scholars and your cluster on day one, and then maintain these expectations by utilizing positive reinforcement and behavior incentives to ensure that those expectations are met. Let's talk about why it's important to have a strong classroom management. Why is classroom management beneficial? And why do scholars misbehave? So, why is strong classroom management beneficial? First, it creates a powerful learning environment for our scholars. It prevents minor misbehaviors before they become bigger. It allows scholars to build relationships with each other and the teacher. And it establishes standards of behaviors that promote student learning. So let's talk about why scholars misbehave. What's the cause? There are 4 common types of misbehavior. I want you to review the following and see if there are any additional categories that may not be represented. What are your thoughts? I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and review this slide. As I mentioned, there are 4 common types of misbehavior: attention seeking, power, failure avoidance, and boredom or disconnected. Are there any additional categories that you feel are not represented here? If so, where do you believe those categories should fit within these? Let's see an example of a situation where a teacher tries to de-escalate a situation. As you watch the video, I want you to think about, what are your thoughts about how he handled the situation? What would you have done differently and or kept the same? And which of the 4 types of misbehaviors does this scholar fall into and why?
You be quiet. And you'll be a real work. Well, I like to see you come up here and do one of these. That's why I come. Knock them off. For my day on my meal. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you earlier today? I said, I do not feel that way, and I would appreciate it if you did not talk to me. I do not curse at you.
All right. What are your thoughts about how this teacher handled the situation? What would you have done differently and or kept the same? Does the teacher do anything to be able to escalate or de-escalate the situation? And did his response end in the desired outcome? Let's go back and look at the 4 types of scholar misbehavior. Which one do you think represents best the misbehavior that this scholar exhibited? So let's go ahead and talk about how you can ensure you have strong classroom management. So we'll talk about how to encourage positive scholar behavior. So now that we've explored the 4 common reasons why the scholars misbehave, we must learn how to redirect these behaviors. We'll start off by talking about redirecting attention-seeking behaviors. So here are some strategies that you may be able to try. Can I have someone read option number 1? Incentivize the desired behavior via acknowledgement, affirmations, and appreciations. Can I have someone read option 2? Say, I noticed, I appreciate, thank you for. Team number 3, nice job quickly following directions. Let me have someone read option 3. Put scholars in teams of 4. Allow them to bond and create team names, logos, and mottos. And our last option, number 4, is incentivize the teams more than individuals. They will apply positive peer pressure for the attention-seeking scholar. Have you ever taught scholars that the only way to get your attention is to misbehave? What if the attention-seeking scholar thinks, how much attention do I get from misbehaving? Wow, a lot. How much attention do I get from behaving positively? I like option A. Have you ever tried one of these strategies? Or if you're new to teaching, have never taught before, which one do you think, which option would you want to try to encourage positive behavior? Here's an example, a tip for you. The teacher might say, red team, nice job quickly following directions. This team has all of their materials and they are seated and ready to learn. Great teamwork. You just received points to visit the treasure chest. Let's look at how you can redirect a scholar who wants to have a power play with you. They might challenge you with a question or refusal. All right, so here's a strategy. It sounds like, why do I have to wait for everyone else if I'm finished? Why don't you know this? Aren't you the teacher? So they're unwilling to follow reasonable directions or uncooperative. They might turn their head away. If challenged, this is the strategy for you. Downplay the challenge. Example, an emotional outburst, and stick to the original topic. It may feel like they are questioning your authority or ushering you into a power struggle. And we do have a tip, and we'll share it on the next slide. And it's easy to remember because you can think of Q-tip. Here's another example. It sounds like, no, I'm not doing that. If they refuse, provide safe and respectful choices and explain the possible outcomes. Give the person time to process. Here's the tip that I mentioned earlier. Remember Q-tip. I must quit taking it personal. This behavior isn't about me, so I must not make it about me. You might try these options. Interrupt and redirect. Scholar name, something is happening or bothering you. Try to take a breath. You can tell me what's happening, write it down, or draw a picture if you prefer. We are on the same team. I am here to support. Here's another one, desired behavior or desired outcome. Scholar name, when you lower your voice, then I'll be able to address your concerns. Or if you wait here, then I can go get the information you need. And for fail-safe choices, scholar name, would you like to talk about this now or later in private? Which would you like to complete first, option A or B? Would you like to complete your work standing up or sitting in your desk? Now let's talk about the third type of misbehavior, failure avoidance. Does anyone have any ideas before I share that you would like to reveal to us? All right, let's look at number one, passive resistance. Keep a low profile and try to be invisible or quiet. This is how they may act to avoid failure. Number two, smokescreen. They volunteer to do other tasks as a way to distract from their limited skills in the lesson. Number three, intimidation. Pushing something off a table or throwing an object on the floor. Non-verbally making threats, such as stepping forward aggressively. Do scholars only get attention when they misbehave? And the last way they could react is they could release, making threats such as aggressively saying, "Let me in the classroom or you'll regret it. I hate math. This is stupid." Here's a tip that you can use for failure avoidance. No one wants to look unintelligent in front of their peers. I must help all scholars to find academic success by rewarding thinking, not necessarily accuracy. How much do I reward and compliment thinking? So here are some strategies. Who can read number one for us? Thank you. Number one, use pair share strategy so scholars can learn from their peers before calling on them to share with the entire class. This keeps the environment safe and supportive. Use a random scholar selector and do not call on volunteers to ensure equity and that all voices are heard. Who can read number two for us? Limit classroom jobs during instruction time that may prevent all scholars from being ready and prepared to make thinking visible. Find out where their learning stopped in that skill. I don't know is responded to with, "Tell me what you do know about the topic." Now, be careful of letting the scholar ask a question that changes the subject to redirect the lesson in the course that they desire. Number three, who can read that for us? Always take a threat seriously. Assess the threat and the risk of harm, and then choose the best response. And number four, let them vent and acknowledge their feelings. Help identify the desired behavior. Has anyone experienced failure avoidance and used any one of these strategies? Which one worked for you? And if not, if you're a brand new teacher, which one do you want to try in your classroom? And the last type of misbehavior is more boredom and disconnected. Are we boring our scholars into misbehavior? If we can't grab their attention and enchant them with your lessons and teaching style, we are going to lose them to boredom and disinterest. And as predictable as the rising sun, unengaged students misbehave, break rules, and seek fulfillment in less than acceptable ways. So here's a strategy that you can use. Accommodate the 4 desires of most board scholars: adventure, laughter, challenge, and fascination. Let scholars act it out. Let them move. They might be able to reenact historical moments or character responses. Let scholars become investigators, problem solvers. Maybe they can do a scavenger hunt on site or via websites. Let scholars become laugh ambassadors, comedians, create funny moments, vulnerability, act silly, be silly. Let scholars imagine and provide rigor and/or complexity. Examples are shock factors. Incorporate dream opportunities within curriculum, my dream vacation, house, or hypothetical storytelling. Here's some tips that you can use with this misbehavior. Ask myself, how long have they been sitting down? If it's more than 20 minutes, then they need movement. Ask myself, would I be interested in this topic back when I was that age or even today? If not, make it exciting, entertaining, and connected to their lives today. Again, here are the strategies that we discussed. Move. Use brain breaks to provide movement, especially in the early morning and late afternoon times when energy is low. Find videos that guide these moments for you. Problem solve. Hook the scholars with a real world component so they are interested in the topic. An example, Dr. MLK died at 39 with the heart of a 69-year-old. Which system was responsible and how did his lifestyle impact his condition? Academic comedy. Always take a threat seriously. Assess the threat and the risk of harm, and then choose the best response. Dream and challenge us. Let them live in the world of what if, or create a hypothesis or predict. Allow scholars to explore. Tell them when you are giving them a super hard challenge. They feel accomplished mastering higher level content and meeting success. So now let's talk about how. How to develop and maintain effective classroom management. There are 3 steps to teaching classroom procedures. First, we need to explain, model, and demonstrate what each procedure looks like. Next, scholars need to be able to have time to practice the procedures. Finally, we want to continuously reteach, remind, and reinforce the procedures until they become a habit or routine. Do we really need to teach and model everything? Absolutely, yes. Can I have someone read this quote for us? Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin. Turn and talk to a partner. How does this resonate with you in the realm of classroom management? Here's a procedure that we definitely need to be prepared for. If there was a fire drill, what would you do? Would you know how to ensure that your scholars are safe? If not, be prepared to ask your site support team. Be reminded that you are responsible for the care and safety of all scholars on your roster. If there was a real lockdown due to a local community situation, what would you do? Would you know how to ensure that your scholars are safe? If not, be prepared to ask your site support team. Be reminded that you are responsible for the care and safety of all scholars on your roster. If there was severe weather, what would you do? Would you know how to ensure that your scholars are safe? Same thing here. Be prepared to ask your site support team to ensure that you are prepared for this emergency. And if there was a scholar in crisis, what would you do? Would you know how to ensure that your scholars are safe? Make sure that you are prepared for this because you are responsible for the safety of your scholars. Now, you are going to need procedures for the following here listed on the screen. I want you to take 60 seconds and identify which of these 12 you need to be intentional in writing procedures for and why. Okay, we are actually going to take some time to create some of these procedures. We're going to put you in groups of 2, and we're going to have you write out 1 or 2 procedures for the one that's assigned to you. We're going to give you about 7 to 8 minutes to complete this task. We're going to ask one member of the group to write down the procedure that you came up with on a sheet of chart paper. And at the end, there will be 2 to 3 sheets of chart paper with procedures for participants to take pictures of and take back with you to your campuses. So at this time, we're going to divide these up. Some of you may be working on the same procedure because there are many of you in here. However, it'll be good for you to be able to see the different ways that procedures are written out. Thank you for working so hard at creating your procedures here. As you can see, they are all up on the wall. And so when we take a break or when we have lunch, go around the room and review them and go ahead and take pictures of any of these that you like so you can have to prepare for your classroom. Now, here is a tip to help establish classroom routines. Posting the schedule helps with classroom management because scholars know what to expect each day and when to expect which activities. It also helps with time management because scholars know how much time will be devoted to each area. Teacher proximity and teacher movement help with classroom management because it helps with scholar engagement. Teach like the floor is on fire. Don't stand in the same place for too long. Another tip that can help you is to use nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication makes up about 70% of what we rely on in order to make meaning of our day-to-day world. The classroom is no exception. Consider at least 3 nonverbal signals that would be beneficial in supporting the clear expectations of the classroom. I would like for you to pick those 3 and then be prepared to share. Who would like to share what 3 nonverbal signals you would like to incorporate into your classroom? Awesome. Thank you for that. Who else would like to share? Tell us why this would be beneficial for your scholars in supporting the clear expectations of your classroom. Discussing the diverse voice levels are huge. Culturally, each of us probably grew up in a home where the adults set the tone for which voice level was the most appropriate. Some scholars are sensitive to adults raising their voice, specifically scholars from low socioeconomic backgrounds and/or those who have experienced extreme traumatic circumstances. Look at this chart and think about how you would teach this chart to your scholars. You would be surprised to know how many scholars do not know how to whisper. Turn and talk with a person next to you and talk about how you would teach your scholars these voice expectations. We're now going to look at a few procedures that have been created for you. Here's an example of lining up. It has 5 steps. Which procedure would you add, change, or keep? Why? So number 1 is wait for your group to be called. 2, line up alphabetically. 3, face forward. 4, arms to the side. 5, voices off. Which procedure would you add or change or keep, and why? Thank you. Would you share with us? Here's another procedure that you can use for your morning procedure. Again, I would like for you to review it. Which procedure here would you add, change, or keep? And do you think that the procedures change based on the time or the locations? Who would like to share? Would you leave it the same? Would you add something or take something away or change it? Yes, thank you. And our last example here is afternoon procedures. Look at this following afternoon procedure. Which procedure would you add, change, or keep? Why? Now, as you could probably notice, these are procedures that are more geared toward the lower grades. And we will look at some for higher grades in just a little bit. So let's watch a video of a teacher having scholars do a routine she's previously taught them. As you watch the video, think about what did the teacher do well? What should the teacher reteach to the scholars? Once the video is up, we'll have you do a turn and talk with someone next to you.
Niños y niñas, por favor, arreglen su bolsita y pónganla correctamente en su lugar de siempre. Y miren al maestro de nuevo. Albert,
Cuando yo diga adelante, van a venir a la alfombra con su papel porque es hora de compartir nuestro trabajo. ¿Listos? Y calladitos, y el papel lo van a poner en el piso hasta que yo diga otra instrucción. Mesa número 1, adelante. Estoy esperando, Dani. Muy bien. Jason se le olvidó su papel y él se recordó que tiene que traer su trabajo para compartir con la clase. ¿Y el papelito va a dónde? En el piso, en la alfombra. Mesa número 2, adelante. Correcto. Mesa número 3, adelante. Miren qué bonito está sentado Matthew y Carla y Aldo, y todos están correctamente sentados, esperando con paciencia para compartir. 3 campanadas, 2 campanadas y 3 campanadas, que quiere decir que tenemos que estar listos.
All right. Go ahead and turn and talk with the person next to you. What did the teacher do well? Is there anything the teacher needs to reteach to the scholars? I'm going to put on a timer for 3 minutes. That'll give each person about a minute and a half to share what your thoughts are. Go ahead and talk. Let me have one person share what you and your partner discussed. Thank you. Now let's look at some 6th through 12th grade examples of procedures. Here we have a class procedures, several different class procedures. Go ahead and take a couple of minutes to read through these. Is there anything you would add, change, or keep? And why? Who'd like to share their thoughts? As you can see, these are very different than the ones used in an elementary setting. Would you keep these the same, or is there anything that you would change about these? Here's another example of some procedures for 6th through 12th grade. We have classroom procedures. We have getting into groups, procedures for supplies. Which procedure would you add, change, or keep, and why? Go ahead and take some time to review it. And I'll call on someone to share their thoughts. All right, who would like to share your thoughts? Do you like these procedures? Or is there something you would add or change? Here's another example of some procedures for grades 6 through 12. Again, is there anything that you would add, change, or keep with these procedures? So one thing that's very important is where and how scholars access materials. Notice that scholars in general need to be able to freely access the classroom materials, tools, and resources in order to fully engage in instruction, whole group, small group, etc. This saves time passing out paper, sharpening pencils, pens, tape, erasers, highlighters, scissors, and other tools. Older scholars prefer access to notebook paper, highlighters, post-it notes, markers, rubrics, and other needed material. So here is an example of some other procedures for 6th through 12th grade. Moving around is an example that you could look at, since we just spoke about having access to materials, turning in work, makeup work, or leaving during class. What procedure would you add, change, or keep, and why? Let's go ahead now and look at a video of a teacher having scholars do a routine she's previously taught them. This time we'll look at a middle school classroom. As you watch the video, what did the teacher do well, and what should the teacher reteach to the scholars?
Let's start with table one. Table one, I'd like you to take your Post-its and stick it on the appropriate side. If you think the author supports that, and con if you think the author does not support helping undocumented immigrants. Table three. Table four.
All right, go ahead and turn and talk with the person next to you and discuss, what did the teacher do well? Is there anything the teacher should reteach to the scholars? We'll have 3 minutes to discuss. All right. Let's go ahead and recap the importance of teaching routines and procedures. I'm going to have a video for you to watch. As you watch this film, why is it important to teach routine to our scholars? Think about that. And why is it important to discuss what the procedure looks like and sounds like?
Hey teachers, Rachel Pilot here from the Classroom Nook, and in this training video, we're going to talk about how to teach routines and procedures to your students so that everyone in your classroom can be a successful member of your classroom community. At the beginning of the year, especially, there are no words that are more important than the words routine, procedure. Without setting your routines and your procedures in place, being very clear about your expectations, you'll spend the entire school year back trying to get your students to be on board with your expectations. You really want to assume nothing, especially at the beginning of the school year when they're coming into your classroom fresh, and the previous teacher may have had different expectations. So you really want to assume that they know nothing about how to behave, how to be a member of your classroom. So you're going to teach a routine, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page, in this instance, a routine is an activity that we ask our students to do day after day. So for example, activities that we ask our students to do in the morning, things like put away book bags, hand in homework. Those are the routines that students do day in and day out. And the procedure is how we want our students to complete those routines. So how we want our students to put their book bags away, how we want them to hand in their homework. How will this look and sound like in your classroom? Because it may be different than what was expected of them in their previous classroom. So we do this by explicit teaching. I like to use a chart that looks like what you see there. It looks like and sounds like chart. And I use this chart for every routine and procedure that I teach in my classroom. So we begin by teaching what the routine is. So for example, arriving in the classroom in the morning. That's the routine that they're going to do every single day. And we're going to talk about what it looks like and what it sounds like. That's the procedure. So for example, in your classroom, it may look like they're walking into the classroom. So they're not running, they're not taking their sweet time. They're coming right into the classroom. They're going directly to the closet. Again, this is what it looks like. And they're handing their homework in the turn-in bin. So those are the things that you want to see them doing as they arrive in the classroom in the morning. Then you're going to talk about what that sounds like. It sounds like them walking in the classroom saying good morning to their teachers and friends. They're not screaming, they're not yelling, they're just quietly coming in, greeting their teachers and friends. And as they go to the closet, that's what it looks like. How that should sound is that they're quietly gathering their things from their book, and then they're probably going to go over to their desk. And the next thing that you'll be seeing is that they're handing in their homework. And what that should sound like is that they're quietly placing in homework in the bin by the sink or wherever you may have them handed in. And also at this point, want to maybe talk about what it doesn't sound like. So they're not standing at the homework bin having a conversation with their students. They're just doing the routine and following a specific procedure. So after you teach them exactly what you expect, you want to have intentional practice. So it's not enough just to tell your students what you expect. They need to practice it. Even your older students need to go through the actual motions of your routine and your procedure. So you're going to practice, and then review. And every time you practice with the students as a whole class, you're going to do this kind of in a charades type fashion. You're going to review how did it go, what can they improve on, what were some good things that you saw, things like that, so that they know how they're doing and if they're reaching your standards for that routine and the procedure. And then you're going to practice some more. You want to cover all of your bases. So you're going to teach your routines and procedures for everything, not just the big things that they do in the classroom, but the very small things, right down to things like sharpening pencils, those little things. Because if you make sure that students know all of your expectations for everything, there won't be any question about what you expect. You're going to have several different categories of routines and procedures, including behavioral routines and procedures, classroom supplies, so the routines for how to use those classroom supplies and the procedures. Transitional movement, things like going to and from specials, coming out of center activities, those types of routines and procedures. And then working and collaborating, so the routines and procedures that you have set in place for when they're working with each other in small groups or as partners. So be sure to print out and download the printables that go with this portion of your classroom management toolkit. So for the teacher, you are going to have that checklist that you see there on the left-hand side to make sure that you are covering all of the routines and procedures. There's also a blank routines and procedures sheet where you can add your own for anything that may be very specific to your classroom. And then for the students on the right-hand side, there is that looks like, sounds like chart. You may not have them do one of these activity sheets for absolutely every routine, but for the ones that maybe they're struggling with or the ones that you find particularly important, you might have them complete this and then keep it somewhere where they can refer to it, especially as they're getting used to the routines and the procedures. And then they have something to refer to, so there are no excuses for not knowing what your expectations are. So there you have it, classroom management tips for teaching routines and procedures to your students.
Awesome. So this is a recap of, all that we've talked about with the importance of routines and procedures. I want you to stand up and find a different partner that you haven't worked with recently and talk about why is it important to teach a routine to our scholars? Why is it important to discuss what the procedure looks like and sounds like? Go ahead and stand up and find another partner. All right, I'm going to put on the timer for 3 minutes for you to discuss this. We're going to continue to talk about the how, but this time we're going to talk about how to develop and maintain effective classroom management with PBIS and a live school. So at PLA, we implement PBIS. It stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. PBIS focuses on a proactive way to teach and reinforce positive scholar behaviors. Just as we teach scholars how to read or we teach them math skills, we need to teach scholars the appropriate behaviors for school. Through PBIS, we teach scholars these behaviors and consistently reinforce them throughout the year. We should implement PBIS in our classrooms and schools because it supports positive school culture and climate. It improves classroom relationships. It builds social skills, increases instructional time, and improves classroom management. The second step to implementing PBIS is to ensure that you will consistently reinforce positive behaviors. We talked about this earlier. Reinforce appropriate and positive behaviors through narrating what a scholar is doing correctly to ensure that the scholar knows specifically what they should continue to do in the future. Let's review some examples of positive narration. First one is, Mark, you are doing a nice job lining up quietly. Thank you, Amia, for raising your hand to share your thoughts. Zoe, I am proud of the way you went to the calming corner when you felt upset. Part of PBIS's Tier 1 support is to have positive incentives in place to support scholars who are meeting behavior expectations. I'd like you to turn and talk with your table mates about what incentives you would like to implement in your classroom or what has worked in the past for you to improve scholar behavior. I'll give you 3 minutes to talk at your table. We do have a QR code here that will links to a document of 25 free or inexpensive PBIS rewards that you can use to recognize positive student behavior in your school. Who'd like to share some incentives that you have used or you might want to use to encourage your scholars to meet behavior expectations? Great, thank you. This table right here, table 4. Here at PLA, we use the Live School platform to provide incentives for scholars. Live School is a platform that enables your vision for school-wide values, staff and student relationships, and family engagement to persist, which leads to positive student behavior. Live School is a school-wide behavior system that supports teachers in recognizing positive student behaviors by awarding points. Live School will allow us to recognize and reward positive behaviors through points. Give real rewards for good behavior. Create school-wide behavior competitions. Engage families and students with an automatic roundup, and measure and analyze positive and negative behavior over time. Here's an overview video of Live School.
This is the year of school culture, when we work together to motivate students and support our teachers. This means defining our cultural values and celebrating our progress toward them. That's why we made Live School. Live School is the platform for school culture. You build a school-wide behavior rubric that reflects the values you want to see in students. Your staff awards points and celebrates students. Students use those points to shop in your reward store, managed in Live School. Or student points can add up to help their team take the lead in your school-wide house points competition. With a flip of a switch, you turn on weekly recap emails to all students and parents. Each week, they click to reflect on points, comments, and more. While students and staff are busy celebrating, administrators and committees have access to unprecedented data with Live School Insights dashboards. You measure school-wide increases in positivity, celebrate your top awarding teachers, and analyze the values and behaviors that need more support. With Live School, you define your school culture vision. You involve your entire community in creating the best version of your school. You find daily opportunities for recognition and celebration, and you finally have the data to assess your progress. This is your year of school culture. There's just one question. What's your culture vision?
You will be provided with a training on how to use Live School at your school sometime at the beginning of the school year. All right, we've done a lot of talking about classroom management, and hopefully you've learned many different things that you can incorporate into your classroom. So we want you to reflect and commit. List one thing that you will start doing, potentially stop doing, and one thing that you want to continue doing. If you've never taught before, then maybe you can share at least 3 things that you will start doing. Go ahead and take about a minute, minute and a half to go ahead and reflect and commit. Thank you so much for engaging and learning about how to have effective classroom management. We know that this is the foundation of ensuring that you have a strong learning environment. And so we encourage you to reflect and really think about everything that you've learned here so that you can start the year successfully.